For 10 years at least, the Tesla fan club has laughed at the idea that the competition is coming. Moreover, there's been a general normal attitude about the competition, that they should be despised, derided, and that the competition should be, meet their demise. But what nobody's talking about is how that will play out when ICE is over. Let me say that again. Everybody's talking about the competition now, the competition in the next several years. We'll talk about that. But what happens when ICE is completely gone and all there is BEV makers? We'll look at the current status of the competition. We're going to be talking about who will lead the BEV world going forward. And then we'll talk about the specifics of when I think the ICE age will end, and then what happens after that. This is Randy Kirk. If you like this kind of content, then please hit the like button below, and then hit subscribe. And then you definitely want to hit notify, because this is the first of, I think there's going to be a total of 5 of these prediction videos where I talk about the future pricing, the future costs, the future cost of goods, the future profits, all the numbers, and these will all, including this one, help you to make decisions about Tesla going forward. So then, of course, you might want to join Patreon, because these numbers, I put these numbers as fast as I get them done. I put them up on Patreon, and then you can look at them and analyze them yourself, and even copy them if you want to. And then when I put the videos up first on Patreon before I put them up on YouTube. So, and right now there's a 7-day free trial, and it's only $5 a month anyway. So, and that's why you should potentially go down and click on the Patreon link and join Patreon. Okay. We're going to have a bunch of assumptions going into these spreadsheets. We're going to start with the assumption. The first assumption is going to be that Tesla cannot be the only company successfully making BEVs if we want to end the ICE age. Now, for some of you, you don't really care whether the ICE age goes away, but it's actually in Tesla's advantage. It's to Tesla's advantage as a company to have BEVs be 100% adopted. The more adoption there is by the general public, the more belief there is that this is the way to go, to use an electric vehicle rather than a gas-powered vehicle, then the more Tesla vehicles are going to sell. So even if you don't believe in the mission, which the Tesla mission is, of course, to make a complete transition into battery electric vehicles, it's still a good thing for Tesla in general. But Tesla can't do it themselves. Elon has said that over and over and over again. He helps the competition. We need, assuming that there's a total light vehicle market of about 80 million vehicles, then we need, and Elon says he's only going to make 20 million of them. That means we need 60 million cars, some compelling cars at compelling prices from somebody else other than Tesla. So that's assumption number 1. Assumption number 2 is that the S curve is in place. And that means that we're likely to hit 80 million electric cars being produced per year, according to me, sometimes in 2028. I'll show you how I get to that number in a minute. This is the Tony Seba curve. If you don't know about Tony Seba, look him up. Go look at some of his old videos or some of his new videos. He got new videos just this year. Take a look at his 5 videos about all the disruptions that are taking place. But in the primary 2 would be the electric overall disruption and the BEV disruption. Anyway, so he would be saying that we're in that S curve. Kathy Wood, who believes in the Tony Seba theorem, also agrees that 2027 will be the end of the ICE age, and by 2028, we'll be making 80 million BEVs per year. So we'll get to that spreadsheet in a second. Okay, number 3, the demand for BEVs will far outstrip the supply for the next 4 years. Okay, far outstrip. So the transition in terms of the mental thinking, I want to still stay with ICE cars, that's going to change very quickly, just like it did with iPhones and so many things before. That is going to be a complete flip. The entire world is going to be saying they want to buy a BEV car, and that's going to mean tremendous demand, not enough supply across the board, not just Tesla, but everybody else. They won't be able to make enough of them. And so some people are going to, they're going to have to wait, or they're going to have to pay higher prices. There'll be car flipping, People flipping the cars because they can buy them cheap and sell them for more. There's gonna be a lot of situations like we saw in 2020, early 2022, where there's so much demand and not enough supply. And then that's going to cause massive pain to the ICE car companies. By late 2025, you're going to start to see this demand completely go away for ICE cars, for new ICE cars, and all of the demand be in the electric sphere. Okay, that number 4. Once we hit 80 million BEVs per year, it will be time. Once that happens, when you've got 80 million being made, the shift will happen in terms of the concern about the competition. At that point, it's all BEVs. So yes, your market share is going to matter in terms of BEVs. You're going to care whether Tesla continues to have the most compelling cars at the most compelling prices so that they can maximize their sales and profits. So that's the time. In other words, heading into 2027, 2028, that's when you're going to say, okay, Tesla, you really better have your big boy panties on because this is the time when it's going to matter. What are you doing now to make sure that you're staying ahead on the technology? We know they're years ahead now on the technology, but they're going to share technology and they're going to make their patents available and they're going to be offering their technology to other companies who pay royalties for some of that technology. And some companies are just going to be able to copy fast and make good things. So there's going to be, again, 60 million cars out there competing. Tesla needs to be really turning it on in 2026, 2027, leading into this time period so that they are still the clear leader. And that's going to mean in terms of the looks of the car, the utilities of the car, niches. Maybe they're going to give up some niches. They're probably going to say, we just don't care about this little niche that 50,000 cars or 100,000 cars, but that's okay. So number 5, the disruption of the disruption is going to take place when FSD is fully operational, fully functional, level 5, whatever you want to call it, and when the robotaxi era starts. That is going to be a disruption of the disruption. Again, people are not thinking about this, but the truth is, once the robotaxi revolution takes place, we're not going to need as many cars. Because they're going to be 5 times as efficient. So some people say that we're going to need only 20% as many cars. So that would mean instead of needing 80 million cars, we only need 16 million. Other people are saying it'll be 20 million. Some people think 25. Some people say that as the cost of transportation goes down and people take robotaxis for 25 cents a mile, people will take more trips. They'll go further in cars. They might use cars instead of buses, instead of airplanes even. If they can jump in a robotaxi and go from LA to San Francisco in 6 hours, they don't necessarily want to go to the airport and sit around for an hour and a half, then go an hour in the plane, get to the other end, have to rent a car. So all of a sudden, people will be using cars more. So it may be that the 20% number is wrong, but there'll be less cars needed. That can create a whole new disruption where it's going to be Tesla still selling 20 million cars a year as robotaxis and other car companies seeing their demand go away if they don't have a robotaxi answer. So that is the 5 assumptions that we're going to make going into this further discussion as I now share my screen and show you the rest of the concept here. Okay, here's where we're going to start. We're going to start out with the percent of the total auto market worldwide that is BEV. Right now, just in this past year, 2022, we hit the magic 10%. So I'm showing this as what I call what I think the case is going to be, and this is a bear version. All right. So we're at 10% now. I'm sorry, opposite. Mike, let's just cut that out. I'll just say it again. All right. What I'm showing here is I'm going to show you the bear version over on the left. And here's the version that I think is the more likely version of the events going forward. So in 2022, both of those, we know what that was. It was 10% of all sales worldwide were BEVs. That does not count hybrids. We're only talking BEVs. Everything I'm going to show you is BEVs because I believe hybrids are going away. So what we're looking at is 100% BEV. All right. So 10% in 2022. We know that the number in 2023 is going to be at least 15%. Those numbers are pretty well baked in. It'd be very hard to be under 15% in 2023 based on the sales of vehicles already so far through the month of May going into June. We can see the numbers, but the numbers are suggesting it might be as high as 17%. So potentially we're going to be at 17% in 2023. In 2024, we know that BYD, which is the second place contender, and Tesla will be adding dramatically to their numbers in 2024, and the rest of the world will be also. We'll talk about that in a second. So I'm just going to assume a 50% increase in 2024 over 2023, which would get us to 22% in 2024, or in the more aggressive case, 27% in 2024. In 2025, another 50% increase would get us to 33%. A little more aggressively, we're at 40%. In 2026, what did I just do down here? Made a little mistake. Let's change this. 2027, 2028. Okay, so in 2026, we would get to 50% on the base case and to 60% on the more aggressive case. In 2027, we would hit 75% on the base case and 80% on the aggressive case. And in 2028, it's all over. Now, the fact is that the ICE cars will end up at this point where you're going from 33% to 50%. The demand for ICE cars will almost completely go away. And the ICE car manufacturers will also not be able to make them profitably. So this is going to be a very difficult period right in here. 26, 27, those ICE makers who also have switched over into making some BEVs will try to start finding a way to survive on only BEVs. They will be fractions of the size of what they used to be. Say a Toyota that's now making 10 or 11 million vehicles a year might only be making 2 or 3 million cars a year, BEVs, and they'll have to figure out, can they survive at those numbers? And that's going to be the difficulty that these companies are going to have along the way. So 2028, we're 100% BEVs. Nobody's making ICE cars anymore. Now, does that mean there won't be a niche car here or there, a car, some kind of supercar that they're making, 100 a year or 500 a year, 1,000 a year, maybe even a niche vehicle that nobody has started to make a 20 passenger van, and there's a demand for 20 passenger vans yet. So there could be some situations that take place. Also, maybe some geographies that are still buying a few. But the problem is there's not going to be anybody to make them because it won't be profitable to make them. All right. So now let's take a look at it by company, by year. So in 2022, we have the numbers. So we have Tesla at 1.3 million, BYD at 913,000, SAIC. Nobody knows who this is. Is anybody paying attention to this company? They're also known as SGMW. Both of those stand for a bunch of, Chinese cities, etc. I don't even know how to say what these are, but SAIC is in third place at 571,000 vehicles in 2022. Geely, which is also Volvo and Polestar, they're at 383,936, but they also make a bunch of other cars and make some of these cars in a lot of the smaller countries. VW comes in next at 325,000 cars. Stellantis, that's Chrysler and Ram and Dodge, and they have a bunch of other brands. Oh, by the way, Geely is also Geely, whichever way you pronounce it. They're also the MG, and MG is one of the best-selling BEV cars in Europe right now. So now you have Stellantis at 288. You have GAC. That's another one like this SAIC, but GAC is a fairly large company in China. They make a car called the Ion, primarily sold in China, but it's coming to Europe as well, and they're at 273. Renault at 228. Believe it or not, Renault is currently a major player in the BEV space. BMW at 215. Hyundai Kia, who I expect to be a major player going forward, they are doing pretty well at 203. Lee at 133. You've heard of these four guys, or three, Lee, Neo, and Xpeng, all about the same, around 130, 120,000 cars. Mercedes then down at 117, Ford at only 61,000, General Motors at only 39,000, Porsche at only 34, Rivian at 20, Nissan at 12, Toyota and Honda at 0. All right, so there's where we're starting. That's the starting point. I am more or less spreading these out at 50% per year increases for each of these companies. So again, I've said this before, let me say it again. When you are making projections about things into the future, when you are looking at other people's projections and they go into all this minute detail and they take it apart by geography, or they take it apart by price point, or they take it apart by model, or they take it apart by production facility, or they take it, and then they add all those up, all those smaller numbers up to get their final number. And it looks like, oh my gosh, they went to all this difficulty, so it must be more accurate. I say, baloney. You could take all the little tiny pieces. You're still making guesses. You don't know what these companies are going to change their mind about. You don't know what the consumer is going to change their mind about. You don't know what's going to happen in a region in terms of the economy. I mean, there's so many things that change. I have been doing this for my entire life as an adult, starting in never mind, I'm not going to tell you when. I have been making spreadsheets and spreading out the projections on my own companies and other people's companies for a very, very long time. And I can tell you, there's no magic. Yes, you can, so one person might be better at it than another in terms of analysis and planning and thinking about it, but the details don't necessarily mean, if you go into minutia, it doesn't necessarily mean that your final number is any better. So I have just applied a rough 50% increase in production each year, and production meaning sales also, for each of these companies, to where you can see that I get Tesla going from 1.3 million to 2 million, then to 3.2. That's more than 50%, but this between these 2 years is definitely going to be 3.2, 4.8, 7.2, and then a total of 11 million in 2027. BYD at 900,000 now to 1.5 to 2.5. These guys are pretty aggressive. These numbers might be low for them. SAIC has been showing their ability to do this as well. So we're showing what they're going to increase to. Geely, VW, etc. You see, there's no other science here. I'm only taking each company. Now, some of these companies are going to do better than 50% per year. Some of them, especially, let's take maybe Stellantis, that only did 280,000. Well, I've got them, it's slightly more than a 50% increase, but at these low numbers, it's easier to jump to more than 50% the very next year. And then some years they might go more and some years they might go less. And some companies will fall out. You'll notice that at the very bottom of the list, I have this category called other, and other is 2.4 million last year. 2.4 million. Okay. That's more than Tesla did last year. It's more than Tesla and BYD did combined last year. So the 2.4 million other, there's a bunch of little companies in China. There's a bunch of little companies all over the world that are making 50,000, 100,000, 20,000 that are just starting out, that have just released their next car. So there's a bunch of additional vehicles out there. So who's going to be the winners? Who are going to be the losers? Some of these numbers, I'm going to be way off at the end. But when we come down to the bottom, obviously, because I'm using exactly the same technique that I use down below, you're going to get to 64 million in 2027. So you get to 64 million in 2027, counting. Now, you notice I didn't increase the other. Coming up with that number, I did not increase the other line. I kept it at 2.4 million. Why is that? Because I think that is going to be a constantly shifting. Some of those companies will go out. Some of the companies that are in the other now will go out of business entirely because they just can't make it. Some of them will go crazy. Some of them will have trouble, getting above their numbers now. So again, guessing. It's guessing. It's pulling numbers out of thin air. Guessing. I'm saying that 2.4 million stays the same, and it will be the same in 2027, roughly. So giving us 64.4 million, giving us all that we need to end the ice age in 2027. In fact, I'm saying that in 2020, by the beginning of 2026 or sometime in 26, most of the major ICE car manufacturers will stop making ICE cars because it will be unprofitable to do so. Or maybe they will abandon most of their product lines and they'll have one or two that they can still make profitably as we go into this transition. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know where I've got it right. Let me know where I've got it wrong. Let me know if there's other companies that I've missed. The last time I did this list, I had missed a couple of major companies, but those are all in there now. I did a huge amount of research on this yesterday, trying to see if I could find other companies that should be in this list, trying to make sure I had the numbers right for 2022, trying to look at how they're doing, whether they really do have a chance of moving into some kind of success. I do have Toyota down here, barely, doing 100,000 cars this year, maybe, and 500,000 cars next year. I have Honda at zero until 2025. I'm sorry, until 2024. No, 2025. Only getting to 500,000 in 2025. So, some of these things could be way off, and maybe you think they are. I'd love to hear that in the comments. If this has been useful, if it's been helpful, if it helps you to think better, think in wiser ways about the overall EV market and Tesla as a company, please hit like. If you haven't subscribed yet, what's holding you up? Have you bought the book, The Elon Musk Mission, yet? We did a lot of this stuff back in October. We had a lot of these numbers, and you can see whether we were right or wrong. Oh yeah, by the way, we were right. And then there's also, you could hit notify, because we'll be having 4 more shows like this with more of these kind of charts, looking at the future, looking at where are things going with regard to the various divisions of Tesla. And then, of course, you could join Patreon, which right now, these charts are going up as soon as I finish them. They're going up on Patreon, and they'll sit there in Google Docs, so you can use them, you can copy them, you can make your own charts. They're completely available to all the Patreon members. I don't ask you to hold back. If you want to put it up on Twitter, you can put it up on Twitter. But these are charts I want everybody to be able to use. But right now, as soon as we finish this YouTube video, I will be putting this up on Patreon along with a rough copy of this YouTube video. And then, so join Patreon, and it's only $5 a month. And by the way, right now you can get a 7-day trial. Doesn't cost you a thing. So that's all I got for you today. It's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.